Alcaraz responds to criticism. After his withdrawal from the Shanghai Masters, the Mercian did not remain silent and came out to explain the reasons behind his decision. Many accused him of avoiding the pressure, but Carlos was blunt. His priority is to take care of his body and mind in order to continue competing at the highest level. Carlos Alcaraz set off alarm bells by pulling out of the Shanghai Masters, a tournament that had been highly anticipated. For many fans it was a disappointment, but the young Spaniard assured that it was not a decision taken lightly. He explained that after a season full of matches and mandatory tournaments, his body needed rest. In addition, he stated that continuing to push his physique could put his performance at risk in the coming months. With these words, Alcaraz tried to stop the criticism that arose after his absence in China. The Mercian went further and mentioned that the pressure is not only physical, but also mental. Competing week after week without having time to disconnect is, according to him, one of the great difficulties of the life of a professional tennis player. Carlos confessed that constantly traveling and playing top-level tournaments leaves little room to recover mental energy. That is why his decision to stop was not simply due to fatigue, but a way of taking care of his career in the long term, something he considers fundamental at this stage of growth. His statements quickly found an echo in other players. Polish star Iga Świątek, number 1 in the WTA, had already shown her discontent with an increasingly tight calendar, full of mandatory tournaments that often force players to choose between health and the rules. Alcaraz said he fully agreed with her and stressed that many elite players will surely have to make similar decisions. For him, it is not about breaking rules, but about seeking balance to avoid injuries or performance slumps. In this regard, Alcaraz acknowledged that deciding to skip tournaments may generate criticism, but he also made it clear that he does so thinking about his future. The Mercian pointed out that if he wants to keep fighting for Grand Slam titles and remain among the best in the world, he must be strategic in the planning of his season. He assured that continuing to play without rest would sooner or later lead to more serious physical problems. That is why he decided to take a step back now in order to return stronger in upcoming commitments. His message was clear: health is non-negotiable. Alcaraz insisted that tennis has changed in recent years, with tournaments becoming longer and more demanding, making it harder to maintain a high level throughout the calendar. He gave as an example that a Masters 1000 no longer lasts 1 week, but practically 2, which implies a huge physical and mental effort for those who reach the final rounds. With that context, he defended his stance of prioritizing his well-being over pleasing all tournaments. Even so, his words divided opinions. Some experts and fans applauded his honesty and the courage to openly talk about an issue many players prefer to keep quiet. Others, on the other hand, accused him of neglecting his commitments and not respecting the magnitude of historic tournaments like Shanghai. However, Alcaraz did not hide. He firmly responded that he will continue to make the decisions he deems correct in order to prolong his career and remain competitive at the highest level. The controversy intensified when Jannik Sinner was asked about Alcaraz's statements during the press conference after his victory in Beijing. Far from criticizing him, the Italian showed understanding and supported his tour colleague. He pointed out that he himself had had to make similar decisions in previous seasons, choosing to skip tournaments in order to prioritize his health. Sinner explained that sometimes it is inevitable, especially when tournaments stretch on and the calendar becomes practically unmanageable for those competing at the top level. Sinner recalled that in 2022 he also missed important competitions because he considered it was the best for his body and mind. "You can always choose," said the world number 2, insisting that, although there are mandatory tournaments, each player must analyze his situation and make the best decision for his career. With these words, he not only backed Alcaraz, but also sent a clear message: elite players are not machines, they need recovery time to perform at the big events. The Italian also acknowledged how difficult it is for younger players to fully understand what is best for their bodies. He explained that at 22 or 23 years old you are still learning to manage the season, which is why it is important to have a good team to advise when to compete and when to rest. In his case, he assured that those decisions allowed him to finish strong last season. For him, the key is to anticipate, plan intelligently and not be dragged solely by the pressure of mandatory tournaments. With these statements, Sinner not only joined Alcaraz, but also supported the stance of Iga Świątek. The world number 1 had denounced how impossible it is to meet so many demands without risking health. Sinner agreed that the organization must rethink some aspects of the calendar so that players are not forced to choose between risking injury or breaking rules. This chain of support has reinforced the idea that Alcaraz's complaint is not a simple whim, but a real and shared concern. Meanwhile, Alcaraz continues to receive both praise and criticism. Some believe he is opening a necessary debate that could bring changes to the future of professional tennis. Others, however, think that mandatory tournaments are part of the sacrifice of being a world star. In any case, the Merchant made it clear that he will not change his way of thinking and that he will prioritize his well-being over any outside opinion. This episode has highlighted a key point: modern tennis demands an intensity that borders on the inhuman. Between traveling, extended tournaments, and a packed calendar of commitments, players are forced to make tough decisions. Alcaraz's voice has joined that of Swiatek and Sinner, and although not everyone agrees, the message is on the table: taking care of health is essential to maintain excellence in the sport. Djokovic attacks Alcaraz over the calendar: "You have to do more than talk in press conferences. There are more and more exhibitions, the same number of tournaments is maintained, the Masters 1000 now last one more week, and the calendar has barely any breathing space." It is the biggest complaint from tennis players, although also a double-edged sword since more matches mean more prize money. However, dissenting voices have multiplied in recent years. Alcaraz, like other players, has spoken out on several occasions, but the action only remains verbal, and Djokovic is now asking that a step further be taken. "I see many players talking about obligations regarding which tournaments to play, but they are for having a financial bonus. There are many exhibitions they sign up for, so everything is a bit contradictory. There is a strong monopoly in decision-making in tennis, created over decades, and many people don't want to change that. What I can say is that we tennis players are not united enough," explained the Serb. Djokovic's statements come in the context of the Shanghai Masters 1000, which Alcaraz withdrew from in order to rest, and after the Merchant signed up for an exhibition with Fonseca in Miami. Carlitos will also play in the $1 million Six Kings Slam tournament, which is not official either. It should be remembered that this season, except for the Madrid Masters 1000, he has hardly skipped any tournaments. Djokovic went a step further in his monologue and indirectly attacked Alcaraz. "We complain, but we don't invest the time and effort necessary to change things. The best in the world need to get down to business, really understand how everything works and do more than talk in press conferences. I know this from my own experience," concluded the Balkan. Carlos Alcaraz's huge anger with the chair umpire during the Tokyo final. Carlos Alcaraz has been crowned champion of the ATP 500 in Tokyo after defeating American Taylor Fritz in the final by a double 6-4. With this triumph, the Merchant claimed his 8th title so far this year and further strengthens what is undoubtedly his best season yet as a professional tennis player. With a very powerful and effective game, Carlitos dominated the final from start to finish. In addition, he was able to close the match in time because in the second set he let slip a 5-2 lead, finishing the set 6-4 before reaching a possible tiebreak that would have prolonged the contest. Beyond Carlitos's good play and his trademark drop shots, the final also featured a moment of tension between Carlos Alcaraz and chair umpire Fergus Murphy. It happened in the first set, when the Merchant received a warning for taking too long to serve. The reality is that Murphy was starting the 25-second shot clock too quickly, not giving players enough time to resume play. Alcaraz, when it was time to go to the bench, reproached the umpire for making him serve too quickly, as he barely had time to rest and choose the balls with which he was going to start the next point. Very angry, he told him that he had never played tennis in his life for applying the rule in such a strict manner. "Do you think it's normal that I finish a long point at the net and then barely have time to go for the balls without being able to rest? Tell me, do you think that's normal or not? Okay, you've never played tennis in your life." Far from letting that discomfort take him out of the match, Carlitos carried on and took the first set 6-4. It cost him though, because he didn't get his first break until the 6th break point he had. In the second set, with Fritz even needing treatment for muscle pain in his left thigh, Alcaraz's dominance was greater and he got to 5-2 ahead. However, a series of bad decisions allowed Fritz back into the final, and the match did not end as quickly as expected. Luckily for the man from El Palmar, he was able to react in time and took the title by a double 6-4.